Welcome to Story Chats at Inspy Romance. I'm Elizabeth Madry, and I'm here with my two co-hosts.
I'm Narelle Atkins.
And Valerie Comer.
Tabitha Bouldin is here with us today to talk about her recent release, Waiting on the Tides. I'm going to read her bio real quick, and then we'll dive in. All right, Tabitha has a bachelor's degree in creative writing / English from Southern New Hampshire University. She's a member of ACFW and has been writing since 2015. When she's not homeschooling her kids, you will find her curled up with a book. Tabitha's genre of choice is contemporary Christian romance, which she describes as adventure with heart. Thank you, Tabitha, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So we're going to start off, as we often do when we have these author spotlights, by having you give us the author's synopsis of the book. So not reading the back, just tell us about the book.
Waiting on the Tides is a little bit of a grumpy sunshine. So we have a little bit of an age gap, which that was the intention of the book. I have a younger college-aged female character who is the sunshine of the trope, and then we have a little slightly older single father who doesn't want anything to do with her, basically not really her entire generation, but he has this bit of a prejudice against the younger generation. He considers himself a little too old and a little too tired to deal with the drama. So of course I had to throw them together, and I had to make her the babysitter. She actually works at his preschool where his daughter goes to school at. So things just sort of snowball from that point on, and chaos ensues. This was also the last book for me in the Independence Island series. So I brought in as many of the previous characters as I could and just created as much chaos as I could to bring everyone together and just have a party.
Excellent.
Chaos is always fun. Yeah. I have to say, Tabitha, that I was surprised to hear in your bio that you went to New Hampshire University there, because your accent does not sound very New Hampshire to me, and that's from like Western Canada, so I could be wrong, but
I'm actually in Tennessee, so I did online schooling.
Okay. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, Narelle, why don't we send it over to you and you can do the first question.
No problem. Okay, so I'm going to read my question so I actually just get it wrong. At least it's not as early as we often start recording. But anyway, so the Independence Island series. So for anyone who's never heard of this series before, it's CCR and there's 30 books in total. So there are 6 authors who have written 5 books each, right? So 6 by 5 equals 30. So the math works. And there's 5 islands, and each story is set on a different island. So I've read in order probably 3 of Carolyn Miller's books in the series, and those 3 books were quite closely connected in terms of setting, character. And the series, for anyone who has never heard of it before, is also in Kindle Unlimited. I did my homework and I did check that. So my question is for Tabitha is, how would you recommend readers tackle reading a series as big as the Independence Islands? How would they approach it? So would you start at book 1 and then work your way through to book 30? There are people in the chat here that love starting at book 1 and working their way through. There are also people like me that jump around randomly, and that's also fine. And that's just what I do.
Fine.
So, would you, pardon?
But also 30 books.
Fine.
30 books is a huge investment in time and possibly cash.
Yeah.
So for those who don't want to jump in and go, okay, now I'm going to read them all.
Yes. And the rest of my question is, would you read it from 1 to 30, or would you do what I've done, which is pick an author and read through their 5 books? So that's my question. How do you read a series as big as this?
For me personally, I like doing it by author. You certainly can start with book 1 and go all the way through to book 30. And that way you move around by island. But you may not exactly lose track of where your characters are, but because there are so many of them, you may not see. If you start with book 1 of mine, you're going to meet Mel and Zeke. Mm-hmm. If you continue on in order, you won't get back to Mel and Zeke and any part of their future story until you read my book 2, which is technically, I think, book 17 in the series. So there's quite a bit of gap doing it that way, which I think Mel walks on the page in a few of Shatona's books, so she is there. But as far as seeing her actual story progress or seeing any of the romance from my characters, you won't catch that unless you go from my book to the next book to the next book.
I wondered if, because I've only read yours of these, I believe. So I wondered if people's characters were in other authors' books or if they were fairly self-contained. I wondered about that.
Yes, we do. They do roam around. I have a few of, I think I managed to pull in at least one character from every other author into my books. They may not be there long, but I did try to at least have them walk on the page and say hello, and then, you know, a little tidbit about what they're doing at the moment before they leave again.
Cool.
That makes sense. It would be a tremendously huge job to keep track of 30 couples. I'm trying to imagine that, actually.
I don't want to imagine. It sounds terrible.
Schedules of all the days that they would be on. Melissa had one in particular, Beth, who goes from island to island. She has the food truck. And so we would have schedules of when Beth was where so that we could each pull her in and have her on the correct island on the correct day. So there was a lot to keep track of, but it was definitely a lot of fun.
That's very cool.
Yes, because I was thinking you could do a 30-day challenge if you're an absolute avid reader, and if you're a book a day reader, and there are people who do read a book a day in the romance genre. I mean, we know that. And in Kindle Unlimited, there are people who will read hundreds of books a year. Yes. So you could do a 30-day binge on this series and either read from 1 to 30 or read through each author's books and have a lot of fun.
Because by then, if you were really doing it one book a day, you'd still have remembered. Well, in theory, you'd still have remembered.
Probably. Yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe. These are a lot of books. 17 days later, if you're reading a book a day, it might not.
Yeah.
What's the average length of these books, Tabitha?
50,000 words. So about 200 pages.
Okay. So a short novel, but definitely not a novella.
You could do it in a day, but it's not as fast as a novella for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Me, it takes a couple days to get a novella, so I'm probably 4 or 5 days on most novels.
Valerie can't do the 30-day binge on this one.
Cannot. I cannot.
I'd love to have the time.
But if any of our listeners do that, especially with this particular series, then sure do let us know in the comments on YouTube or our Facebook page. That would be fun to hear how you did that. Or if you've just read them all, that would be cool to know too.
Maybe you've been keeping up since. When did this series start? Has it been two years? A year?
Yes.
Years? Okay.
2.5 years. We release one every month. So 30 books.
30 months.
Yep. So almost 2.5 years, because we still have a couple left to release.
Okay, that was what I was wondering, is how many more are there? Do you know?
I think October's book is about to release, and then mine is in November, and then December is, I think, Carolyn's last one. So
okay,
very cool. All right, Valerie, you're up.
All right. You're on the hot seat, Tabitha. No, not really. One of the things that I found interesting in your story was Sarge, the police dog. So your hero, who has a name that I wrote down, Christian. I think, Christian, is a police officer on this island, and I did not write down the name of which island it was. Sorry. But the dog is trained to detect drugs, right? Mm-hmm. And what I found interesting was how he went from being on duty and focused and, dare we say, fixated on duty to being a friendly family dog for Christian's little daughter. I'd love to hear what kind of research that you did and how you came up with the idea to include this dog.
Sarge originally was a military dog. So he went through the whole process of being brought home from the military, and none of that was included in any of the books except for in, I believe the third book is when Sarge first comes to the islands. So he's put through a rigorous program so that he can now be brought back down from being military, that high level, on guard, constant attention, to where he's more, where he can still process and he can still work as far as being a police dog, but he is not in that highly active situation all the time. So that he's I'm not sure exactly what the word is for that, but he's been retrained basically so that he can be more of a protection type dog instead of seeking and all of that for the military as he was first trained to do.
So would a military dog, they wouldn't be trained to, I don't know, be kind to small children. Right. So the interactions between Sarge and Kristen's little girl, whose name did I write it down? Probably not.
Emily.
5-year-old daughter. That's what I wrote down. There you go. Because 5 is my favorite age. Everybody knows that.
Well, I do think, like, I mean, military dogs still have off time, right? When they're not working, and they are trained to be like their handler. My understanding, basically from reading like Ronnie Kendrick's books, like that's my experience with military working dogs, right? But they have that off time. So, it wouldn't be unreasonable that the dog would know when he's not working to be, a kind dog. They're not vicious killers all the time, never.
To know when he can steal a little girl's waffle or not.
Yeah. So, yeah. Were you asking what kind of research she did? Is that where you were going with your question?
If you have any personal experience with police dogs, military dogs, or how you...
I don't have any personal experience with them, no. There's just a lot of background information of working with animals in general. And of course, Ronnie Kendig's books have been a lot of inspiration for actually bringing Sarge into the series. So it was just a lot of reading, a lot of videos to watch and to bring in the interactions of how he might react to certain situations and things like that. But he did spend, I think I had him about 2 years that he was with Trent and a few others, basically getting reconditioned so that he would not be that fiercely attack mode, so that he could interact with Emily and with others without being constantly a risk, which is actually something that I think Abby brought up whenever she first met Sarge, because her first interaction with Christian was a little bit intense, and so Sarge took on that protective mode, and that was one of the first questions she asked is he safe to be around Emily?
I liked that. Of course, I didn't write the heroine's name down, and I'm sorry. I've just had too many things as I was preparing for the podcasts to remember all the details every time. So the young lady, the
Abby.
teacher, Abby, thank you. When she like touches Christian and the dog like goes, ah, and she's like, whoa. I thought that would really add quite a different level to a potentially romantic relationship. If you're always like, what's the dog going to do if I come close to this guy?
Yeah. And that was because he had his vest on at the time. So he was in on mode because he had his vest on. He knows that when his vest is on, he's working. And when it's off, he can relax.
So would he not be trying to protect Christian from Abby or anyone else when he's not on duty if he thought his master was at risk from this woman wanting to kiss him?
He would.
Is the dog a romantic? I guess that's the question.
Yeah. He might not be as aggressive about it whenever he is off duty, but he would still definitely protect.
One thing I really appreciated about you including Sarge in the story And it's something I struggle with a bit as an author. Sometimes I think I haven't had a pet in a story for a while, and I know he's not a pet, but an animal. And so I should definitely add one this time. And so I do, but I keep forgetting it's present. And and the animal, the dog or the cat, may or may not actually be important to the story in any way. They're just like there because we need well-rounded characters and everybody likes animals in their stories. But you made Sarge like not just important in those moments, but all throughout the story. And was that a challenge to do? Did you sometimes forget Sarge existed? Or how did that go?
Sarge very much took on a personality all of his own. He almost became like his own little character as we were going through. And I knew, as important as he was with Abby and Christian during their very first meeting, I definitely wanted him to have that same sort of presence in the conclusion. Even if it was maybe a little bit milder, I still wanted him to be a major part of that moment.
You did a good job pulling that puppy in, that not so puppyish puppy.
Not so puppy.
Not so puppy.
Very good. Cool. So my question, and you mentioned it at the start when you were describing the book, is this is Grumpy Sunshine. And so I have sort of multi-pronged, multifaceted question. What do you enjoy about writing Grumpy Sunshine? And what are sort of the pitfalls of it? Was it hard for you, or did you feel like it was a pretty easy trope to keep going? I've tried sometimes to have a grumpier character. But while I'm not, Little Miss Sunshine myself, I have a hard time keeping someone being super grumpy in my books, because it's like, you're really obnoxious and I don't feel like dealing with you, so you need to fix your attitude. So
this is the mom in you coming out.
Did you at all, or tell us a little bit about writing Grumpy Sunshine, and would you do it again?
I actually, and I didn't realize it until recently, that it was a Grumpy Sunshine trope. I think I sort of forget what tropes even are when I'm writing, and then I have to get to the end of the book and I'm like, wait, what did I just do? So I think Abby was actually the harder one to write, because I'm more in the middle area of Grumpy Sunshine. So, and my family, I say this all the time, my family is incredibly sarcastic. So grumpy comes easily to me from that point of view, because I can always throw sarcasm at the situation, and it can come off as grumpy sometimes.
Right.
And sometimes Christian means that intentionally to sort of show the grumpiness. But the sunshine part of Abby, it was hard sometimes to keep her in that mode, because she did have quite a few things happen to her as the story progressed. So it was a bit of a challenge to keep her upbeat throughout the whole thing.
There. Okay, I can see that. I would struggle to have like super perky all the time too, because that's not my go-to either. So yeah.
I think she had a few moments where she came down a little bit and was more on a maybe what you would call an average sunshine level, instead of being way up here. So
but we all have days like that, right? Days when we're like, yes, let me challenge everything. Maybe Beth doesn't, but most of us do. And other days where everything just seems just too hard. So I think we do all have those highs and lows, even if we tend to live kind of more in that middle range. So yeah, to portray a character that's usually, if not always, way up there or way down there is harder. Yeah. And then there was the age difference thing too, eh? You had fun with playing that off.
Yeah, Abby's about 23, I think, and then Christian is 10 years older, so he's about 33, almost 34. So there was a little bit of an age gap there.
I will say that didn't stand out to me as much. I feel like, if anything, it was sometimes a little obvious, because Abby's sunshine sometimes felt like immature. So I was like, okay. But there were moments when I was like, oh, right, she's young. There weren't a ton of those, which I think is nice in an age gap, because you want to believe that the relationship's going to work later. Which, if there's always like this huge difference between them, you're like, they are never going to figure it out in the long term, because it's just too much. I also appreciated that there wasn't really a big power balance, for all that there was an age gap, because sometimes, again, with age gap issues, you have a power balance issue as well, and then that can be problematic.
Well, that's true. That wasn't an issue in this story.
No. Yeah. But I couldn't imagine Abby being single at Christian's age either. Does that make sense? Yeah. Someone would have snapped her up. She's very sweet. Honestly. Yeah.
Somebody who wanted more and more sunshine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sunshine's attractive though.
Yep. And she's very comfortable with who she is, and knowing that she's young and that she comes off as immature, and she wants to grow and she wants to present as that capable adult, and yet she's pretty okay with just being young.
When I've written some age gap stuff too, I mean, you kind of have to have the character realize, or the other character, that the only cure for that is time. I mean, you're as old as you are. You can't, you're not going to suddenly act 30 when you are in fact 23, and people around us don't either. So the only cure for that's time. And it's not like you can snap your fingers and go, oh, now I'm mature.
Here's 10 years of life experience and you wake up brand new.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. So what is next for you? You said this was your last one for Independence Islands. What's coming next in romance world for you?
I'm moving to the Swamele Islands. We're going to the Pacific Northwest, and we are going to write a 3-book series for each of us. That is, I honestly have forgotten how many of us there are in that series right now. We're still writing the first books. We're just getting the first books turned in and sort of processing everything that's happened. So, but yes, we do have more islands coming.
So it's a similar premise, but a new location and some different authors. Is that correct? Or all different authors?
Some new. There are a few of us moving from the Independence Islands to the Swamele Islands, but then there are some new ones as well.
So these are somewhere in the Seattle area and the Juan de Fuca Strait area?
We're going towards Hawaii, New Zealand.
Oh, way out there. Okay.
Oh, in my side of the world. Pacific, so it's Pacific Islands. So you're going international with this one.
Okay.
Oh, cool. That sounds exciting.
I heard Pacific Northwest, so I thought Seattle area too. I was like, oh, up in Valerie's.
That's where the islands are.
Yeah,
down in.
And then I'm thinking rainy islands
as
well.
Right, that's
sunshine.
Yeah.
So when is the first one of those coming out, or your first one in that series?
My first one in that series should be June of next year, if I'm not mistaken.
Cool.
Okay.
And does the series start? What number book are you?
I believe I'm number 6. I think we're starting them in January. I could be wrong. I have too many schedules in my head right now, so I could be wrong on that. But they are starting early next year.
Okay, so coming soon though. That's good.
Okay. So we'll be watching for that. Sounds interesting, because you're building a whole new culture there, right?
Yes, we have the French settlers. The French settled the island, and then Samoans also came in and helped them build up plantations and things like that on the islands. And then we're sort of just picking it up with, we're really overdoing the tourism on the islands this time. Whereas with the Independence Islands, it was no tourists allowed. Now we're bringing all that in. So we have people from all over the world, all different countries, and it's just going to be a huge mashup of everything.
Sounds interesting for sure.
Very fun.
Cool. I'm glad we asked.
Yeah. And where can everybody find you and your books?
I am at tabithabouldin.com.
All right. I hoped that was what it was, because that's always easier to remember, but it's also always good to ask. So we are like right on time. So do you two have any final thoughts or questions about the book?
No, I think we've covered what I had written down anyway.
Yeah, no,
Tabitha,
I'm good.
Do you have anything else you just want to make sure gets said?
I think I'm good.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you are watching or listening, thank you for doing that as well. We'd love to hear your thoughts if you've read this book or any of the Independence Islands books. Leave us a comment in the YouTube channel or our Facebook page for story chats. And if you are over on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell while you're there so you never miss an episode. And we will look forward to seeing you again next week. In the meantime, don't forget to fall in love with a good book. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.